Last episode we ended up at 2,981 score, 19 points away from our original goal of almost exclusively pugging to 3k. In this video we hit 3,000 Mythic Plus score, and here's what I learned. So starting off this episode, we run a 22 Neltharas on the same fortified week that the freehold was from last video. At the start we went right so you can optimize the chains perfectly. This saves so much time overall on your key, so if you guys aren't doing this already, you definitely should be incorporating it into your runs. After this, you'll go back left and go up to the first boss, Magma Tusk. The pally unfortunately falls over here. He was stood way too close to the blazing charge, and the lava waves that come out from it just took him out. But the boss was pretty much already dead at this point, so we did just save the combat res and killed it by ourselves. We had an absolute Giga Chad tank in this run, so we pulled all of the remaining mobs up to Chargath to the last chain and then chained them all down at the same time. This literally saves you so much time on your key if you're able to do this. You've got to have a confident tank and a competent group with you as well. Make sure if those hunters are leaping to you, use a defensive for their bleed, because it definitely does hurt on these fortified weeks. And then just get the chains off when the mobs are all grouped together and you should be golden. Chargath went down pretty quickly. We ended DPS here at around 130k, which I'm pretty happy with. And again, continuing with the theme, we chained the whole next room as well. Massive time saves going left, right, and center here. Here we did something unique that I don't really see that much. The tank actually made us skip the pack on the stairs that cast the Dragonbone axes. It's definitely a scary pack on fortified weeks. You've got the Dragonbone axes going out. You've got the modes of combustions that you need to kick. You've got the melts as well. So potentially a good pug route. I haven't seen many other groups do it though, to be fair. On Forge Master Gorek, the priest actually got taken out by the Blazing Aegis. He just was already low, and they don't have that much defensives, especially when they're holy. The Pala also gets taken out here. I think he might have just stood in one of the swirlies that come out from the Blazing Aegis. Not too sure on this one. But from about 20% on the boss, we actually 3-man the rest of the boss, so that felt pretty cool to do. I was turtling for when the big damage phases were going out when he jumps back to the Forge in the middle, using all of our defensives, and I still had health pot left. So it's some good Zephyrs and also rescues from the Evoker here as well to save us. And we take out Forge Master Gorek. Again, keeping to the theme of the unique run, for some reason we pulled the mini boss. I guess maybe it's a lot of percent. Honestly, no idea how much percent this mob actually gives you. But here I die like a complete bot. I just get caught in between like the lava puddles already on the floor and the swirlies, and then just fall over to it. Had my turtle up here, so definitely could have lived. I just had a lack of concentration, I guess. But the guys take out the rest of the pack and I meet them down the bottom. We were really efficient on percent here, so we were able to skip the final pack of the dungeon that people normally take. You can actually skip this without an invis or stealth, but I just don't trust myself, so whenever I'm doing something like this, I always go into stealth, especially because I've got pets with me. But if you walk along the blue marker, you should be golden, and the priest could have even mind-souped here to help us out too. And we start the boss with about 9 minutes left, so we are really doing well for time here, especially on a fortified week. Unfortunately, I do get taken out here by the magma shield as it breaks. We were all pretty low. I wouldn't really expect this on a 22 fortified key. Maybe the healer was struggling a little bit. I did have my turtle and survival of the fittest up. I just didn't feel like I needed them, but I definitely, in hindsight, should have pressed at least my turtle just to survive that last tick. And then I could be DPSing the boss in the amplification phase here. The healer then gets taken out by the curse. It definitely looks like the healer was struggling on this last fight here. I don't know if priests have a curse dispel. I feel like they don't. So we can't really blame him for leaving the curses active on us. But he could always out-heal the curses, especially on a fortified week. So he gets taken out here and goes into his angel mode. I get CR'd here and accept it. Speaking of CRs, the priest actually gets combat resed here as well, but it was unfortunately on the swirly that spawns the ad. So he accepts the res into the swirly on the ad, perfectly timed. Takes him out straight away again. But at this point, the boss is pretty much dead, so we do just take him out. For this key, we get +8 score, so we're now sat at 2989. I guess we didn't get much score out of this because we did time the 24 on the tyrannical week. But regardless, you take score gains wherever you can get them. Next, we move on to a 23 older man, and my pets die in this first pool here. I don't know what it is at the moment. This is literally the story of my life. My pets are just getting aggro somehow, literally mid-pool as well, so the tank should have more than enough aggro. And my pets are just falling over, so I'm losing so much DPS here. There is one pet family that actually has an instant res every 7 or 8 minutes, I believe it is. It's the Stonehound family, so maybe I start running with one of those in the future. But they just don't look as cool as the Spirit Beast now, do they? I guess because it's fortified, we actually went to the Lost Dwarves first here, which always feels nice not to have to backtrack after we finish off Bromac. But for some reason, the BM Hunter is beating the Shadow Priest here on 3 targets. Not sure that's supposed to happen, but we'll roll with it anyway. It's just weird because BM isn't the greatest at small cleave. Moving on to the third boss, Talondras actually gets off a Titanic Empowerment cast here. I did have my stun up here, and so did the Holy Paladin, I imagine. However, we just weren't prepared for the Druid not to be able to drag him through the orbs that actually stun him and utilize that mechanic, so I didn't get it off in time. So that caused our Evoker to fall over to the Earthen Shard and also the Crushing Stomp. Understandable, I guess, because the boss is empowered at this point. I can't remember if the healer had Bop off cooldown at this point, that would have definitely saved him, but it's probably on a few of us for not actually stunning the Titanic Empowerment cast. Here the empowerment had actually fallen off, but I get taken out by an Earthen Shard that literally does 90% of my HP. And then straight after that, there's a Crushing Stomp that just wipes me out. I had nothing off cooldown here that I could have pressed to save myself. I was just praying for the healer at this point, but unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky. The healer also goes down at the end of the fight, but it's not the end of the world because the boss is pretty much dead. We probably shouldn't be having this much trouble with a fortified boss, but it is what it is sometimes. So we take out the boss and move on to a next big pull that we're actually going to Lust here, and an Afflicted goes off somehow. I'm not really sure how that happens. There is 4 potential candidates that could deal with this Afflicted. Maybe there was another one that was already up. And also the Druid might not have been talented into a Dispel, in all fairness. However, there is a lot going on in this pack, especially on a fortified week. There is a lot of outgoing damage, but it was just unfortunate that the Afflicted did go off. Moving on to the Earthquake mob, then the tank actually said to lost this mob before we started the pull. I don't know if you used to be able to, I feel like you did, but we unfortunately can't loss it anymore, so the priest does just tick out here. Maybe he had a defensive off cooldown, but I know I definitely wasn't expecting to be taking damage here. And shortly after, the Pally falls over to a Curse of Stone. Maybe one of us could have stopped the cast going off, but outside of that, there's not really much we can do. As you can see, my Counter Shot, Intimidation, Freezing Trap, and Binding Shot are all on cooldown, as well as Wailing Arrow I've just seen. So I can dodge the bullet on the Blame there. But unfortunately, because of the long run back for the Pally and the Priest, the rest of us just tick out here. Eventually, it was going to happen. There's too many kicks and too much outgoing damage that we can't prevent to actually continue living this pull. At this point, the key's pretty much over. Older Man is actually a really tight timer, I guess because of the amount of bosses in this dungeon. But we strived on to the end of the dungeon, although I think our mental was bricked in here. The tank pulled while I was still outside the room. Somehow we pulled these last 2 mobs. It might have been me, I honestly can't remember. Copium. So they lock onto the Pally, and this is where the key is definitely over. Not that it wasn't already, but I think at this point we'd all had enough, so we just end up leaving the group. We don't get any score for that one, but we do end up running it back on a really, really clean 22. I do have this full run on my YouTube, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave it down in the comments below. But we didn't have any deaths in this run. It was a completely flawless run, and we even got a compliment from the Mage and the Holy Paladin at the end about my damage. So that's a big W right there. And then we get 10 score out of this, which actually leaves us at 2,999 overall score, 1 point off of our goal. Unfortunate, also kind of a meme, and gives us more reason to do even more keys. After this, we ran up a 22 Neltharion Slayer, a pretty free key all in all. There's not too much to worry about in this dungeon. Maybe the pelters are the scariest thing in here. But on this first pull, apparently there was something else to look out for. I was so zoomed in, I don't even know why. I think I was maybe showing off some mounts before this key. But the worms actually teleported behind me. You can just see them in my screen, but I think I was too focused on how much I was pumping damage in this pull. And they both hit me with a Viscid Bile, which takes me out. I do react quickly with an Exil, but unfortunately it's just not enough to keep me topped. And then I just fall over. As you can see, we fall over at over 1 million DPS here, so God knows what we would have ended that pull on, because BM sustain is incredible. So that was a tilter because I was really hoping for a massive overall on my 3k completion key, but it's not the end of the world, it's just my ego that was damaged. Moving on to the Neuraxis rune, the tank actually falls over back to back here. I think these slugs actually really hurt tanks. From when I've tanked in this dungeon, that I know that they have definitely hurt me. But yeah, we see RM mid pull and then he immediately falls back over. To be fair, it's going to be hard for him to recover, especially if he gets instant aggro. As a bear, you need those Iron Furs overlapping and also maybe a Bart skin that he had already probably used. So that's unfortunate and it causes us to fully wipe, but it's not the end of the world. The timer is pretty free in Neltharion's lair. On the Neuraxis, we actually let one of the ads get devoured, so then for the rest of the fight, the boss gets a increased damage buff. Luckily, it didn't affect us too much though, and we did take it out with little to no problems. It is a fortified key after all. But outside of these few fails here and there that we had during the run, the rest of the key was pretty smooth, and we finally got our 3k. We got 8 score out of this, so now we're at 3,007 score. It honestly wasn't too difficult to get up to this level. Obviously, everybody else's goals are different, but this season in particular feels pretty free, I guess, maybe because of the introduction of the Augmentation Evoker, which for some reason I always seem to have one in my group. I don't know how they always end up having the same name as well, but that's neither here nor there, so we'll skip over that part. And like I mentioned in the last episode, we are going to be continuing this push onto 3.1, potentially even 3.2, and we will be continuing to go over all the highs and lows of those keys. Pretty happy with the 3k though. We got 3k in the first season and now we've done it again on the Hunter. I had a bit of a wobble this season with what to main, but I ended up back on the Hunter and I'm thoroughly enjoying this season now. So we continue on, and I didn't actually even realize this key was going to be Score, but I was trying out the new buffs, and I have also got this full run over at my YouTube, so if you guys do want to check out the full run, then just head on over there. But yeah, I promise the Augmentation Evoker, the Warrior buff, and the Monk buff were not planned in the slightest, and also I forgot to mention the PI, but yeah. During this pull at the start, the Priest ran off to do the Mind Soothe. I could see what he was going for here to speed up the run completely and make it smoother. However, we were taking a lot of damage in this pack, so a few of us almost ticked out, and it hurt my bloody DPS. But none of us died, so it's all Gucci. Moving on into the forest area, the Monk actually falls over here, so the rest of our group falls over. We let 2 Afflict to go off here, and also I think Monk probably struggles with the back-to-back big pulls in this tree forest area in Brackenhide Hollow. So he does end up dying, and then the rest of us follow suit. But all in all, there's not too much to learn from this key, and as I said, I don't really want to go over keys that I've already uploaded in full length on YouTube. So we get 4 score out of this, and now we're sat at 3011 score. After this, we jumped into a 24 freehold. I'm back on Beast Mastery now. But this was actually quite a clean run, and it was a super interesting route as well that I actually really liked. Like, I had no idea that these mules even existed. I don't know what they do, but the tank got the Priest to Mind Soothe the mobs around it and then pulled these 3 mules onto the boss. They literally did nothing, so it's pretty much free count. I don't know how much count they give specifically. I can't imagine it's much, but nevertheless, it ends up being the route. Skipping on over to after the Council of Captains, here is where the route spices up a little bit, and we actually go over the bridge first instead of going to the Ring of Booty Arena, and here we get Lust on cooldown for this big pull. Really nice for a fortified week because this pack is definitely scary. And yeah, super efficient for the Lust timings as well. Then we take out Harlan with no problem. Run on back over to the Ring of Booty Arena to clear out the last amount of trash and also the last boss. The tank does run in and instantly die here. I've done this before on my bear where you run in with Barkskin, and I've even had Rage the Sleeper up before and you literally just fall over instantly. I don't know what causes it. Maybe he didn't have those cooldowns active. But he dies and the Priest and also the Holy Paladin fall over because of it. Those are our first deaths in this key. But we all make those mistakes here and there. We pull some trash onto the Turtle mini-boss and the Paladin does fall over to one of the shells that are going around the room here. Easily done. I've done it myself. It's just one of those. And I think a little bit of panic set in here, or maybe the Priest was just trying to dot up the training dummies outside of the arena, because the Priest goes up the side and instantly gets taken out by the throw food. Unfortunate, but yeah, he was quite high up here, so you can't really argue with that. And then we take out the last packs. I was a little bit panicky here because I was thinking we're quite rushed for time here. We got 2 packs to go and we've only got 2 minutes left. So I thought somebody might mess up and die, and then we end up wiping in the key when we've had a really smooth run. Otherwise, it didn't go that way though, fortunately for us, and we actually timed the key. And we get a massive 15 score out of this. So now we're up to 3026. I think this is one of my first 24s that I've timed as well. Explaining more so why I was panicking, but we got it timed and it felt like a really nice run. After this, we jumped on into a Halls of Infusion 23, and this first arena is definitely the scariest part of this dungeon in my opinion. The dragons I don't even think are that bad compared to these containment beams, which takes out the Priest, and then because we have 1 less man in our group, the beams have less people to target, so they often gang up on people, which then takes out the healer and also the evoker. The Geomancer jumps out of the pool on the next pack, and somehow I have aggro from it as a Beast Mastery Hunter. Not really sure how that worked. Maybe I barb shot it and that got me aggro. But realistically, it should probably be my pets getting aggro like they normally do and die. But this time it was me. I get taken out by this. Not really much I could do here. Obviously, I've got my Feign Death Turtle off of cooldown, but I just did not expect to be one-banged by this Geomancer. So that's unfortunate, but then we do go on to take out the first and second boss. We skipped the dragons because we were able to at this point in the season. This was before the nerfs to Mind Soothe. Honestly, felt pretty safe on Kajin. I think Resto Shaman deals really well with this fight. I know it is only a fortified fight, but I guess the Shaman's mastery and also just their healing toolkit allows them to really deal with the outgoing damage in this fight. I've always had good experiences with Shamans in here. And then unfortunately, just because the run was a bit scuffed here and there, we overtimed the key. We did have 3 phases on the last fight. I'm not doing the most damage I probably could have been doing here. I normally end this fight on well over 100k even with the run back, so not really sure what was going on here to be honest. But yeah, we missed the timer by about 10 seconds, so that's unfortunate and we don't get any score out of this. Really wanted to time this Halls of Infusion because it's one of my least favorite dungeons of this season. and I just wanted to kind of get it out the way. But yeah, normally Halls of Infusion feels pretty forgiving, but this time it felt really unforgiving for some reason, but you can't win them all. But we jump back into a 22 Brackenhide Hollow here. I do just want to preface, I did do this with a full pre-made group. We weren't on voice comms, but I trust these guys with my life. Don't ask why. So it was a super smooth run. I won't go into all the details for this key because we have just done a Brackenhide Hollow in this episode already. But we did have a death to the trash in the first area. It was just a bone bolt that went off at an awkward time. And then the tank falls over on the last pool before the last boss. Honestly, I have no idea what they died to. Maybe there was a swirly on the ground that I couldn't quite see, but they literally went from 80% to 0 in like 0 seconds. So that was unfortunate, but we do take out the last boss with ease. And then we 2-chest this 22 Brackenhide with about 2 minutes to go on a 2-chest timer. So this is some big score gains right here, and we get 11 score out of this, pushing us up to 3037. Really clean and fast run, so no complaints there. In the same stream here, we did a 25 Vortex Pinnacle. I had never timed at 25 this season prior to this, so I was not going in with any expectations. I was honestly surprised that we even got past the first area. In this key, I really started to feel the effects of raging because a lot of mobs were getting low, and then my kick was already on cooldown, but I was just not able to CC them in any other way. But that was kind of irrelevant to this pool because the priest did get taken out by a rushing wind here. I mean, it's a 25 fortified on a clothy, specifically a priest. There's not really much you can do about it. I guess looking back now, I maybe could have placed a freezing trap in between, but I've tried this with binding shot before to see if it stops, and the dot still looks like it applies even if the gust soldier doesn't make it to you. So I don't know if that would have saved them. In the same millisecond, our mage gets taken out, he procs core, and then instantly gets killed. I guess it was a wind bolt. My kick just came off a cooldown, and I used it pretty much instantly. I could have used my freezing trap as an interrupt here, but it is definitely a RNG fest with whether the freezing trap procs on the right mob. Also have my wailing arrow up, so I guess we can chalk this one up as my fault. And I also probably should get a weak aura that tracks the rest of my group's interrupts just so I can be more on it. After that, I get taken out by a rushing wind myself and maybe a wind bolt at the same time, not too sure. But I mean, our healer is dead at this point, so we're definitely going to fall over at some point. So we wipe up and run back to the same pool. As you can see here, all my CC is on cooldown here, so I'm dealing with this pool a lot better this time. I was probably just overwhelmed about being in my first 25 on the last pool. But overall, I did feel like I played this key pretty well. We take out the first boss pretty easily here. This boss isn't too mechanic heavy. It is kind of one of the easier fights this season. And we end on 110k, so that's not too shabby, especially on a BM hunter. And now we have Lust back for the pack on the stairs. This pack honestly terrifies me, along with multiple other ones that are coming up. But to be honest, we actually dealt with this pack really well. Our AoE CC, our single target CC, and all our stops were on point here, and we take out the pack pretty easily. It also helps when the mage is doing 700k DPS and I'm doing 500k. Shout out to the bear as well, doing 250. On to another big scary mob in this dungeon, we have the young storm dragons. I've got into a horrible habit, I think, of using my turtle on the first icy buffet. I should probably realize that in these keys, we're probably going to use our AoE defensives on these first ones here, and then I can use turtle later in the fight once it gets scarier, but for some reason, I always just instantly press it when I see it. Not the worst thing to do in the world, pressing a big defensive when a big ability goes off, but I could definitely min-max better here. And just when you thought the scary pools were over, we go into arguably the scariest pool in this dungeon. So much CC to coordinate in this pack, so much outgoing damage. Maybe not as much outgoing damage as the last couple of packs near the lightning fields, but I feel like this pack is harder to execute without comms because of the sheer amount of kicks going out. It was going decently, we were all using our AoE CC on cooldown here. The problem is in this pack, apart from maybe Vapor Form from the assassins that we dragged in, every single cast is terrifying and can easily kill us. Cloudburst being the scariest one, and this one pretty much goes off, but the Fire Mage Dragon Breath at literally 99.9% of the cast and interrupts all of them, so that was a big clutch right there. But then Seb gets taken out by a Wind Bolt, Afflictor goes off in the back, which really didn't help. As soon as that Afflictor went off, I pretty much knew that was the key. GG, go next. But considering it was our first 25 and it was Vortex Pinnacle with this amount of kicks, I don't think we did too badly. Like I said earlier, I honestly didn't even think we were going to get to the first boss. So it was good progress to get to where we got. And lastly, for this episode, we have more pain in Brackenhide Hollow. We are now switching to a tyrannical week, so obviously the bosses are going to be a lot harder this week, and this key was interesting from the get-go. The mage innocently asked at the start of the key where we were going to Bloodlust if we could maybe squeeze one in before the first boss. And the Holy Paladin replied with kind of a troll question, so at this point I was already feeling a little bit sus about the key. I then died to a Vicious Claw Mangle. Unfortunately, I didn't get any footage of it because I was using Shadowplay for this key, but I should have definitely seen it and just dropped a Feigned Death. It's as easy as that for me to deal with them. I just felt like it came out of nowhere, and then after that pull, the Holy Paladin wrote in the party chat saying, "Hunter, are you okay?" So I was like, here we go. Here we go. This is a true pug experience right here. Take out the first boss with no problems. We had some good kicks, surprisingly. And then we get into the forest area. Now, it is a sanguine week, so I'm not expecting my tank to pull the mobs on top of the totems and just infinitely heal the totems. Don't even know if they do actually receive healing from sanguine, but let's just say they do for argument's sake. So we didn't have an alchemist in here so that we could all cleanse our withering debuffs, but I was thinking it's a tyrannical week, the tank's not dragging the pack anywhere near the totem, so I'm just going to ignore them and actually do relevant DPS to the mobs. The totems weren't even giving us that much of a problem anyway, but then the tank and healer decide to gang up on me out of all people, even though I'm top of the overall DPS, and they say, "Hunter, what are you doing?" basically, and saying, "You've got shit overall DPS," and I was like, okay, here we go. And it's interesting to me that they picked me to flame instead of the mage because I'm on top, even though we're both doing sort of similar DPS, and it's decent DPS, I promise. The key was going half decently so far, but when people start being that toxic for pretty much no reason in party chat, you just know it's not going to end well. We get onto the last boss, which is the only problem in this key, but we just had slightly too little time to actually take out the last boss before the timer expired. For some reason, the paladin only notices it at this point. So 30 seconds into the depletion, he leaves the key and runs out of the boss room. He actually gets taken out and dies because of that, which I found pretty funny. I'm sure that absolutely tilted him off the face of the planet. But then yeah, after that we exchanged a few kind words in whispers and also in party chat with the demon hunter, because for some reason them two decided to team up on the rest of us, even though arguably it was his tanking that was the problem. And then we go on our merry way. It probably was for the better that we didn't actually end up finishing this key, because then we could run it back on the 23 tyrannical, which is still score, I'm pretty sure. But we'll leave that one for next episode. If you guys did enjoy this video, then please drop a like down below and also subscribe to your boy. We'll have plenty more of these episodes coming out, and once I've gotten to a point where I'm probably not able to push much more, then we might end up doing it on a different spec or a different role. We will see. So let me know if you guys want to see that. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.